Hey, glad you guys could join us again, and welcome to Door Talk.
Hey, welcome back to Door Talk. I'm Matt Gaines, and on today's program, we actually have with us from VT Industries, Jacob Freese. And Jacob, tell us a little bit about who you are. I know you're the territory sales manager for here in the Southeast, but what does that role entail for you?
Correct. So first of all, thank you very much for having me on here, Matt. It's an honor and a privilege to be on Door Talk with you guys. Very excited about the opportunity. And my role as territory sales manager, I cover Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and the Caribbean. So in my role, I work very closely with distributors, with architects, with general contractors as needed. And I'm kind of the face in the field for VT Industries, which also is representing Eggers Industries and Superdor as well as part of that VT family nowadays.
So, wow, that's incredible. Well, so you're the first line of defense against people like myself and my counterparts right here at Warren Door and Access Control. So, well, we're glad to have you. I mean, because having somebody like you that's a wealth of knowledge on your particular industry and the field that you work in is incredible, because we've all been in this industry a while, and we've had sales reps and vendors that may or may not know their product, and having somebody available to us that knows the product, knows the lead times, knows the ins and outs is just an incredible tool for our industry. So we thank you for that.
Thank you.
So on today's program, we're going to cover a few things that VT Industry offers. We're going to talk about the differences of their cores, and then also some model numbers. So if you're a contractor, if you're an architect, or even if you're a door consultant of in this program, you can learn a little bit more about VT, what they offer of core types, what their model number structure might be, and we're just going to go from there. So here we go. All right, so let's just start off with this, Jacob, and talk about your standard introductory particle core door. Tell me what you know. Tell me why it's good. Tell me all the ins and outs. Tell me everything you can.
So yeah, absolutely, and cores is a great topic. So particle board core is probably, without a doubt, the most popular core in the architectural door industry. It's been the standard in our industry for about 30 years now, 30 to 35. It's got options for fire ratings that are non-rated, up to 20-minute ratings. So it's not going to be that 45, 60, 90-minute door, but it is a perfect fit for, just your standard commercial architectural grade aspect door of, for an office, for a hospital, for, educational, anything like that. You can use a particle board core door, and you can trust that it's going to stand up to the test of time, and really just a great product to be used for architectural usage. It's available FSC certified, which is a plus if you're looking for that on your project. If you're going for NAUF, controlled FSC, or an FSC, it's available with that. And as well, you can use it for either plastic laminate, and you can also use it for wood veneer. So, but just a very strong product in the industry, and it's a competitively priced option as well, compared to the other core types that you might see as well also. So,
all right. So what kind of different plies and options do you offer as far as your particle core?
Good question. Yeah. So we offer two different plies for our architectural grade particle board doors. The one is going to be 3-ply, and then the other is going to be 5-ply.
Okay.
So VT Industries offers those two options. The 3-ply is only available for plastic laminate doors, and then the 5-ply is available for either wood veneer or plastic laminate, whichever face material has been specified or is being used on the project.
Okay.
The differences between the two is that the 3-ply particle board is going to be a little bit more competitively priced than the 5-ply. Reason for that being, with a 5-ply, you're going to have a piece of cross banding on each side of that door that's going to go in between the face and the core material.
Okay.
So if you're using a plastic laminate, you can look at that option of going with a 3-ply particle board core door, because the laminate is going to be a little bit thicker than your wood veneer. Now, with a wood veneer, you're always going to want to stay away from 3-ply particle board cores, because that veneer is just going to be way too thin, and that veneer is not going to adhere properly to the core type, so the actual core. It'll adhere to the cross banding, which is why if you're using a wood veneer door, you're always going to have cross banding in between that face material and the core.
So that kind of leads me into my next question: the difference between, you know, the non-cross banded particle core door versus the cross banded. Same scenario, just the difference of adhesion, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, different, and really just a difference in price. You'll see on some projects, if they're using plastic laminate and they maybe want to save a couple of dollars here and there, and you know, it's very popular in the hospitality industry for maybe, you know, these roadside, highway side hotels that they're trying to save a couple of bucks, and by doing so, eliminating that piece of cross banding on both sides of the door is going to save them a little bit of money. But one thing to always remember is that when you eliminate that piece of cross banding, that laminate material is going to go directly onto the core, which can lead to potential telegraphing up in that top rail. So always one thing to remind people of, if they are going with a 3-ply door, it could lead to potential telegraphing, which isn't a defect, because it is eliminating that cross band in between the two that helps give it a more plain surface to adhere to. So.
Right. Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, let's move on to the next core type, and this is one that I was relatively new to. You did a presentation for us back, I believe, in April or May of this year, and I had never heard of this option before. It's your agri-fiber core. That's even hard to say, but tell me a little bit about that.
So absolutely, agri-fiber is a somewhat, some would call it a newer direction in the industry as of probably the past 5 to 8 years, I would say. It really started to blossom when a lot of that FSC and controlled wood and controlled products came into play. It's an extremely rapidly renewable product made of soybean and wheat stock.
Wow.
So kind of an interesting thing. You know, it's a great door product. It stands up very well. It's actually one thing that is kind of interesting is it's also got pretty good screw holding capabilities too, compared to a particle board core door. So
really?
It's a very popular product, but between it and particle board, you're going to have advantages between one or the other.
Okay. So what would you consider the best use for that agri-fiber door?
So agri-fiber door, my point that I always push people on is, if you're using a structural composite lumber core door, which we'll talk about here in a minute also, if you're using a structural composite lumber core door for a 45-minute fire rating, and if the manufacturer will allow it and has passed the testing to do so, you can also use an agri-fiber core in place of that structural composite lumber core to meet a 45-minute rating, which in turn, yeah, absolutely, which in turn will save you some money on that door.
Wow. Wow, that's interesting. I didn't realize that you could meet that with that type of core, but that's cool.
Yeah, that's always an option that we get people that look at and say, well, I've got structural composite lumber core 45-minute doors on here. And if they need to, we'll always try and see if we can substitute agri-fiber for those structural composite doors. You know, if hardware and elevations allow, we can usually do it. So.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. Now, what about your different plies? Is it just one variation on the plies, or?
So it's going to be just one variation on these plies. Okay. It's going to be 5-ply.
5-ply. Okay.
Textural grade. But actually, I take that back. For laminate, you can also do 3 on it. But it wouldn't be very common because you're normally just going to be using a particle board for that laminate anyway. So
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, because in my mind, using plastic laminate on it almost kind of defeats the purpose of that core type. But nevertheless, so let's talk about the stave lumber core that you just referenced a little bit. So tell me if this is still available and what that application, what you might use a stave lumber core door, even though it's older technology.
absolutely. So stave lumber core is one of those things that just continues to stick around. It's an older, outdated product. It's, if you look at it, you would just assume it's a butcher block, and it's essentially what it is. Stave lumber core is made up of multiple blocks of wood glued and adhered to one another. So the disadvantage of that is that each piece of that wood blocking is going to take on moisture and humidity different than the other piece.
Right. Which means that you could, it'll dry out, it'll crack, it'll twist, it'll warp.
Yep.
I mean, so what application would somebody even want to use this, given the other choices?
So that's a great question because, and I ask myself that a lot whenever I see people specify stave lumber core. I think it's either just a lack of knowledge on the new products that we may have, and also I think old specifications that might still be out there that call for this stave lumber core, when really they should be using the particle boards, the agrifibers, the structural composites, which are highly more advanced options than that stave lumber core, which, like you said, is very susceptible to twisting and warping and so forth.
Yeah. So you guys do offer the cross-banded stave lumber core as well, right?
We do. Yep. We do keep it around just because it's one of those things that, gosh, I mean, 3-4 times a year, I'll see a job where somebody says they're requiring us to use stave lumber core, and we've got some of it. So we'll throw it out there despite our better judgment.
Okay. Well, another one that I'm pretty excited about, and this is kind of relatively new that I've seen as well, is the structural composite lumber core. Tell me why you would want to use this over a standard particle core door.
So structural composite lumber core is going to be the option that you want to use if over a particle board door, if you've got, specific hardware, such as exit devices or raceways or things like that might take out a good chunk of that door and that core from the prep. You're going to want to jump over to a structural composite lumber core because it's just going to have a little bit more stability to it when you start taking out more of that, chunk of the door from that prep, as well as when you're doing full light kits, full glass light kits, things like that, full louvers, anything like that's going to take a little bit out of that door. That structural composite door is going to be able to hold itself tighter and keep itself a little bit stronger in that opening with that much taken out of the core.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what about like your fasteners? How does it hold them better than a standard particle core?
It does, yeah. So actually, the funny thing about structural composite lumber core, which I always like to tell people, is it's one giant piece of blocking. So when you're using a particle board core door, and if you tell VT or whoever, hey, I need to get, a 5-inch top rail, or I need a 10-inch bottom rail on this door, if it's particle board, we're going to actually substitute a piece of structural composite lumber core in for that rail or that style, or wherever you need that 5 inches or 10 inches blocking, we're actually going to be using structural composite lumber core.
Wow. It's just, I guess it's pressed a little bit tighter. It bonds better.
Definitely, and it's just a more superior fastener holding ability because the density of that structural composite lumber core is a little bit more than the particle board core. So it's essentially just one piece of blocking that is going to stand up, I think, to the test of time, and just a great product. A bit more expensive, of course, than your standard particle board core, but for good reasoning. So
right. Now, on this core type, is there any fire rating availability on that?
Absolutely. So the nice thing about structural composite lumber core 2 is it's kind of been seen as the industry standard for 45-minute rated doors.
Okay.
Because you can go back and forth from the agrifiber and that, but the agrifiber is going to be a little bit less in terms of what you can do there with hardware and raceways and light cutouts, things like that.
Right.
Structural composites kind of cemented itself as that top choice for a superior, stable door product that can meet a 45-minute rating without having to jump to mineral core, which certainly saves some money.
Well, okay. Speaking of mineral core, does VT offer a fire? Do they offer like a 60 to 90-minute door in a mineral core door?
Absolutely. And we actually, as of the past couple of years, are making our own fire cores.
Okay.
Which is something we had been developing for a couple of years and we're extremely excited about doing. We have begun implementing over the past couple of years our own VT Industries fire cores. So,
wow.
And those cores meet 60 and 90-minute ratings. Sometimes, depending on the application, will need to be substituted for a 45-minute door. But it's going to come down to what your project needs and what they're putting on that door, whether they would have to jump from that structural composite to the 90-minute, 60-minute core. So
right, that makes sense. Well, that's good to know. All right. Well, Jacob, do you have anything else on core types that we need to cover that we might have missed or that jumps out at you?
No, so I think at VT and Eggers, we offer a lot of different core types. We offer those 4 that we just talked about. We also offer sound transmission cores, which is going to be your STC products. We also offer bullet resistant doors, so ballistic doors, levels 1 through 8. And then on your STC door products, at our Eggers division, we can go up to an STC 52 with an 1 3/4 door. So
wow.
We've covered a lot of the bases in terms of what people might need.
That's impressive.
So if you need anything, we're there for you, and we can usually cover it.
Well, that's great. Well, Jacob, I think we're actually going to stop the program on the core types today. So thank you so much for being with us, and we can't wait to have you next time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you.